Bam, 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 bam.
Right. The porta potty started to move, as if it were being pulled into something. What the hell is that? Sean yelled as he noticed the giant floating octopus spaceship thing. It's pulling us in! Brace yourself! The Golden Line vessel started to fly faster and faster with this large octopus. As they were about to crash into it, a wall retracted and revealed about 15 octopods. They landed in the docking bay, still peering out the windows. Are those octopi? It looked as if Sean's jaw was about to fall to the floor. Ed just looked, not at the octopods, but at the HTCV's high-tech crap box control panels. There was a large red timer above all the buttons. It read 50. Cyclopod finally arrived at the docking bay. What are you idiots waiting for? Open the box! About 15 octopods, about 5 octopods walked to the HTCV. One of the more dull ones opened its mouth. But sir, it says that it's occupied. Cyclopod pulled out his favorite weapon, the trout-flavored laser rifle. What he did next with it was quite gory and fishy. Sean had no clue what was going on, and soon came to a realization that his death will be a painful trout-flavored one.
So there will be no more octopods or porta potties in the rest of this talk. But we wanted to share with you a bit of what's going on in Miro's inner world before we get into the outer world, which has become our lives for the past 4 years. For those of you that read our blog, you know our blog is raisingmiro.com. You know that Miro's working on his first novel, and that was an excerpt from his first novel. He talks, well, the novel's called Sean, the Time-Traveling Pizza Delivery Man.
Yeah.
So Miro writes about multi-dimensional travel, and that's what we're going to talk to you about here today, which has become our lives.
Well, we're a mom and son who left the United States 4 years ago. We gave out all of our possessions, preparations, and yeah, we had no idea back then we'd still be traveling now, but that's how it ends up sometimes. When my mom asked me to consider leaving the States back in 2008, I was only 9 years old, and I was kind of scared back then, but the idea of not going to school was pretty cool. My mom worked all the time, never had any time with her. She's always working, so this was a great opportunity to spend more time with each other.
And I've written before about this. One of the most heartbreaking things that he said to me all the time was, "Mom, you never spend any time with me." So that really propelled the lifestyle that we're living now. Miro and I are originally from California. And I used to own a boutique branding agency, and I worked in advertising, marketing, and graphic design for almost 18 years. A year after my son was born, I started my own agency, and the idea was I could probably spend more time with my son, right? You know, if you own your own company, but it didn't turn out that way. I worked primarily with green eco companies, nonprofits, and conscious businesses. So I kind of thought my head was in the right place, and I kind of thought that I was using my skills for good instead of evil. So, you know, it kind of gave me a sense that I was doing the right thing. But in reality, I was still contributing to kind of this culture of consumerism that really kind of got under my skin really deeply. There was a deep illusion surrounding our lives, and I was aware of what this illusion was, and it was called the American dream.
She talks about this a lot.
I often ask myself, how can my life be so wrong when I was living the American dream? I had achieved a level of success and proudly wore the label, oh my gosh, it's up.
Take it over.
Okay, just a second. supposed to be shown before you guys, before we started talking. Tools. Slideshow. Here, there it is. Okay. Starting? Yeah, here it goes. Okay, so basically, we were living the American dream. I proudly wore this label of an accomplished single mom. You know, we had a trendy downtown loft. We, I owned my own business, and I drove a vegetable oil-powered Mercedes-Benz. And people were envious of our lives. They thought from the outside that we were living this, ideal, artistic, accomplished life. But to me, I knew something was wrong. I was stressed, I was unhappy, I was overworked, and I was missing out on my son's life. And I felt so deeply inspired to make a change. At the end of 2008, the effects of the California economy, the economy completely crashed, and I was forced to close my doors of my once thriving agency.
Yeah, the next 6 months of our lives, we were preparing, pretty much, getting rid of all of our stuff, disconnecting. We found a home for our pets, and we drained the contents of our very filled 2,000 square foot loft, which took a long time.
Awesome.
There was a lot of kind of convincing people that we weren't insane.
People were actually totally afraid for us. They were,
it's hard to compete with.
People were actually, they thought we were crazy. And one of our friends actually said to us, you guys should buy kidnap insurance. Have you ever heard of such a thing?
No.
Like, what's that gonna do? Kidnap insurance.
Yeah, right? I mean, what do you say to the kidnapper? Stop, don't kidnap me, I have insurance. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. Giving our first presentation is pretty nerve-wracking, and we were just as nervous when we started our travels.
I remember our first footsteps into Mexico. We were blasted by the heat. We were overwhelmed by the sounds. We were confused by the language. And I remember in the moment my limited ability to order a margarita in Spanish would not suffice. I remember carrying this heavy backpack, and I felt weighted down. And I was really stressed because I knew that if there was an emergency, there would be absolutely no way, I could do anything under the weight of this backpack. I was scared, I was overwhelmed, and then I tapped back into my inspiration. And that was the thing that was deep inside of me that prompted us to take this chance and to actually trust.
Yeah, and everything was fine. We have tons of travel stories from Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Guatemala. Everything was fine. My mom and I went to our first ever ruins, which ruined her.
Which I love archaeology now.
I learned how to snorkel. We swam with sharks, went caving, saw ancient skeletons and skulls. That's a monkey. Tubed down rivers, climbed volcanoes, surfed, and tried lots of tasty food. Drove my first car, kayaked, rode bicycles, met lots of interesting people. The first few months were fun, and eventually we found our groove.
So Miro mentions the people, and I would never underestimate the power of connection, the power that people can have in your lives. For us, we've had some really, really profound connections, and I could talk 10 hours telling you stories about those connections, but I just want to share a couple here. We were in Mexico, and we were walking by the front of this house, and there was this 90-year-old man who was mourning the death of his wife, and he had an altar set up right in front of their yard. And I walked by and I stopped, and he grabbed my hand, and in that moment, I had the most amazing heart connection, love affair with this man. I loved him for the rest of my life in that moment without a story. It was the most profound connection, and our eyes met, and I can't say anything deeper about that other than it touched the very core of my soul. Or in Nicaragua, I met this very scary looking man, tall man, big muscles, tattoos everywhere. He was a former gang member. He had tattoos of teardrops on his face, and if you know what that means, I mean, the implications of that are pretty scary. But we met, and our eyes met, and we started talking, and we started this really incredible conversation. And he told me that he had been in jail in Florida, and I didn't ask for what, because I didn't want to get into that relationship. And he said that after doing his jail time for being in a gang, he was sent back to Nicaragua, where he was born. And he found himself an outsider in his own country. And he shared with me some of the vulnerabilities that he had and how it felt to be in a country where he didn't belong. And we had the most incredible conversation that you can imagine with this very scary person, or appeared to be a very scary person. But it was the most authentic connection, one of the most authentic connections I've made with another human being. So that was incredible. And then, wow, talking makes you thirsty. And then we met this family from Belize. And Miro and I hired the father to take us to the waterfalls. Yeah. And we invited his wife and 2 children to join us. And this is in the beginning of our trip. We didn't speak much Spanish at all, so the communication was really, it was difficult. But we had one of the most incredible days. We laughed, we played, in the water. The little kids were just charming. And the wife was so filled with smiles. There's a picture somewhere. I can go back and show you. But after the waterfalls, the family took us to their house, and they lived in this one-room shack, and they had dirt floors. They had an outhouse in the back. And at the end of the day, as we were trying to leave, they wanted to give us presents. And we just stood there thinking, how could these people who have absolutely nothing want to give to us? So we have a million more stories like that occurred in the last 4 years. And it was very, very difficult to pull out just 3 to share with you here. But I urge you guys to go to our blog at raisingmiro.com if you want to read more.
People have inspired us, and it wasn't just locals. There have been inspiring travelers as well. Like Christopher, who walked from Los Angeles to Brazil. Whoa. Yeah, walked. Okay,
and
Jamie.
We met him in Guatemala.
Yeah. Jamie, who was inspired to ride his bike around the world for the last 7 years in order to combat fears, his and others, and pedal for peace. Okay? There was Roxanne, who has a passion for helping women in conflict zones and designed programs in over 10 countries for the UN. Okay? And there was David, who had given up his life in California to collaborate and create sustainable communities. There have been many people. There's Hannah, who decided to leave Sweden to experience 3 continents on her bike to prove that traveling in an eco-friendly way is possible. Shannon, who left her comfortable home, family, and boyfriend in the United States to work with children in a garbage dump in Guatemala to give a part of herself.
There were so many people that have touched our lives in the last 4 years. It's difficult to communicate really accurately the effect they've had on us. Because of these impacts, changes inside of us occurred. And those changes are countless as well. But for me, one of the changes has been learning to slow down. And I mean slow way down. Okay. For the first time in my life, I identified with doing nothing. And it doesn't mean that I wouldn't do things to fill the day. I would take a walk, or I'd sit in the park, go to the gym, cook, or play in the garden. But whenever somebody asked me, what do you do? I would always have to ask when to get clarity on the question. So that's a real profound shift from who I used to be.
I want to talk about stepping out of our comfort zone. And for sure, this whole trip has been a series of stepping outside and doing things we didn't know we could do. And literally discovering things about ourselves we never knew as well.
Yeah.
Like this one time in Nicaragua, I was volunteering at a veterinarian clinic, and I was actually running the triage unit. I was cleaning the wounds after the dogs and cats had come out of surgery, and didn't know I could do that. Another time in Ecuador, we were volunteering at a children's library. I was helping kids read, my age and younger, and designing and leading art and drama activities for them.
In Spanish.
In Spanish, nonetheless. I was a leader. I've never done that before either. I did okay. Another time, I had a howler monkey latch on my face, wouldn't let go. You know they could do that.
You guys saw the picture? Yeah, we've had so many incredible discoveries. But what we wanted to share with you really was what we've learned is when you step outside of your comfort zone, that's where our intuition speaks to us. That's where learning happens, and that's where the magic of life and being present is. And that, to me, has been the greatest gift that our lifestyle has given us. Travel has given us that gift.
But be honest, you haven't always been fearless. You've had some pretty scary situations to overcome. Like, how about the time you watched me swim with sharks in Belize?
Terrified.
Or when I fainted in the kitchen from lack of oxygen. Yeah. Or what about the time I cut my foot really deep in the ocean of Ecuador? Actually, every time you did remind me that the world is a safe place, and we'll have to move through these things together.
And the world is a safe place. And what we've discovered also is through that safety we learn. It teaches us.
Well, since this is an unschooling conference, shouldn't we talk about that next?
Okay. So when we left on our travels, I had never heard of a thing called unschooling. So you guys are 10 steps ahead of us because we had no clue there was such a thing ever. When we had initially planned on traveling, it was going to only be for 1 year. And I thought, well, you know, the experience is going to be enough of an education, right? So at least I was thinking correctly. I thought Miro would receive through the virtue of traveling the best education there was. But it was timed to a year, and that was okay. But during that first year, I watched Miro learn, and I watched his curiosity grow, and it expanded, and learning happened naturally.
Wasn't even trying.
When we decided to continue our travels indefinitely, I knew it was my responsibility as a parent to address his education. Then I found out about unschooling through my research online. I had discovered Dana Martin, thank God. And I also discovered that there's a community, and that to me was huge, that there's a community of like-minded folks that perhaps are not traveling, but have the same perception and ideas about learning. And that made our journey a lot more comfortable. And I realized that finally I could participate not only in his life, but in the learning.
A few months back, I wrote down the top 10 reasons why I like unschooling. Do you want to hear them? Do you want to hear them?
Yeah.
All right. Allows me to be lazy when necessary. Let's see. It allows me to pursue my interests as opposed to being forced to learn a certain thing, like math. Just saying. There's no limit to things I can accomplish, and if I don't accomplish them, no penalty. I don't even have to be studying to learn. can be through experience, just as easily. It allows me to sharpen skills which I think are useful. Recently I've been practicing cooking, not very good at it. It can take place anywhere, hence the world is my classroom. It allows me to go out and make friends of any age or walk of life. I don't have to wake up early. This is a big one. I sleep until 2:30 on average. I'm not even supposed to be here. And it allows me to write lists about why I like unschooling, whatever I'm doing. So that's a big one as well.
And we also wanted to share with you, through our experience, we discovered that there are 3 types of unschooling, or 3 types of learning, natural learning, that happens in our lives. And we wanted to share those with you so you have a peek into kind of our educational experience. First, Miro said the world is our classroom, and it can't help but to teach us. And to the degree that we're engaged in the world is the same degree that we learn. So there's some equal learning there, and that's something to think about. Miro naturally picked up things like Spanish, archaeology, that's my fault, mysticism, arts, geography, history, politics, economics, ecology, and leadership skills. Wasn't even trying.
I'm awesome.
Second, we naturally learn when we're encouraged to follow our own interests, and we know that's the foundation of unschooling. But for me, reading about it gave me the courage to encourage him, right? The courage to persuade him, not push him, but to support him as the interests pop up. So now I'm clear about my role as the facilitator, as the partner, as the parent, and also as the learner, because we're learning in partnership. Oh, and some of the things that he's followed in terms of his interests have been permaculture, theater, mythology, cryptozoology, and zombies.
I am a 14-year-old boy after all.
And third, we have discovered that learning happens through community. Learning from each one of you here at this conference. And I know from my past professional experience that every creative campaign that I ever built for clients, it happened because of the magic of co-creation. This has happened countless times on our travels, and I'd love to talk to you about that too if you have questions about that. In my experience, learning, co-creating are the foundations of a joyful life.
All right, heads up. Incoming poop story. It's gotta happen.
Oh, by the way, we wrote these scripts together. Take a guess who wrote the next part.
It was her, obviously. So we just left the city we were living in for a weekend trip, and we took an overnight bus. And in the middle of the night, while everyone was sleeping, I woke up. Something wasn't right. I slipped into the bathroom that was at the front of the bus, and I sat down on what I thought was a very small toilet. And in a few gassy moments, I was done. I was out. And I was greeted by a female bus attendant who proceeded to ask me, "What did you do in there, little girl?" I replied with an awkward stare, and she went to the bathroom behind me, instantly came out with the most horrified look on her face. And to be fair, I did just poop in the sink, so
We have so many travel stories. And yes, even those embarrassing ones can teach us. We write about many of these stories at our blog, so feel free to follow along there. But because we do have a blog, we get lots of questions emailed to us. And we wanted to share with you some of the questions that we get and answer them for you here.
Question, when are you going home?
Answer, we are home wherever we are in the world.
Question, you can't do this forever, can you? When will your little vacation end?
That one really pisses me off. This is not a vacation, this is our lives. Because it's different, it doesn't mean it's a vacation. We have good days, we have bad days like everybody else. And so be it. Just accept it. This is our life.
Question, what about your son's education?
That one kills me.
Yeah.
I can say with full confidence, Miro is getting an incredible education. It's a global education. Is there any doubt?
So what's your plan? Question. Sorry.
Normally we don't have plans. We like to live by inspiration. When we're inspired to stay in a place, we stay. When we're inspired to go, we go. But for us, inspiration has become an integral part of our lives, and we've learned to listen to it, so it guides us. And that's a really interesting way to live. Recently, Miro, we love Peru. We've out of the 4 years of travel, almost 2 of the years we've been in Peru. And we recently moved to the Sacred Valley, and we've been inspired to create a retreat for unschoolers. If you guys are interested, we'll tell you more about that. But that was one of the things that we were inspired to do.
Oh, that's my cue. Sorry. So the retreat, it's called Project Unschool Peru, and it's a 4-week retreat in Peru's Sacred Valley, taking place in June. If you're inspired to attend, please either find us at the end of this talk, yada yada yada. There's our website, projectunschoolperu.com. We also have a special discount offer for people at this conference, so yeah.
And?
Oh, and one of our favorite questions, where is your favorite place?
And that's an easy one to answer. Do you think it's Antigua,
Panama City,
Lima,
Cusco,
Granada,
Manizales,
Cartagena,
Baños,
Manzanita,
Jicacar,
San Ignacio,
Coban,
Copa,
Cozumel,
Tegucigalpa,
Catarina,
Licatitlan,
Cali,
Medellin,
Salento,
San Cipriano,
or Popayan. No, actually, our favorite place is the unknown, because there, everything is possible.
Thank you.